June 1942. In the dark waters off the coast of Long Island, the silence was broken by the mechanical groan of a German U-boat breaching the surface. Under the cover of a moonless night, 4 men disembarked, stepping onto American sand. They arrived carrying forged documents, luggage filled with thousands of dollars in cash, and high-grade explosives. But among them, one man was wrestling with a choice that would dismantle the entire Nazi espionage network within the United States. What he eventually whispered to the FBI would alter the course of the war on the home front. The events that followed would shake the highest levels of the American government to its core. The landing took place on June 13th, 1942. It was past midnight when the team reached the dunes of Amagansett, New York. As the 4 saboteurs climbed onto American soil, they wore full German naval uniforms concealed beneath civilian clothing, a tactic to ensure they would be treated as prisoners of war if captured immediately. Their pockets were lined with American currency, totaling nearly $175,000. But their luggage contained something far more lethal: timers, detonators, and explosives. Their mission was to cripple American infrastructure from within, targeting factories, bridges, and railroads. Leading the group was George Dasch. Having lived in America before the war, Dasch spoke flawless English and understood the culture intimately. Yet, the moment his boots touched the sand, a shift occurred in his psyche. Looking at his team and the deadly equipment they carried, he made a split-second decision that would stun both the Third Reich and the United States. But first, they had to bury their uniforms and vanish into the darkness. The Nazi strategy was brilliantly simple, yet devastating. These men were not deployed as soldiers, but as saboteurs, honed by months of rigorous training at a secret facility outside Berlin. Their target list was specific and catastrophic: aluminum plants crucial for aircraft production, major train stations, municipal water supplies, and hydroelectric dams. If their plan succeeded, the American war effort would effectively collapse from the inside out. The operation required them to split into 2 units. Dasch and his partner, Ernstberger, were assigned to New York City, while the remaining 2 agents would travel south toward Florida. Their orders were to blend in, appear like average citizens, and await the signal to strike. However, the operation began to unravel almost immediately. A young Coast Guard officer, John Cullen, was patrolling the beach that foggy night. He spotted shadows shifting near the dunes and moved to investigate. As he drew closer, voices drifted through the mist, voices speaking German. Dasch turned and locked eyes with the officer. For a tense heartbeat, the beach was silent. John Cullen froze, realizing he was unarmed against 4 strangers emerging from the fog. Dasch stepped forward. "We are fishermen," he lied, claiming their boat had run aground. Cullen remained unconvinced and demanded identification. In response, Dasch reached into his coat, but instead of a pistol, he withdrew a thick wad of cash. "You didn't see us," Dasch whispered, pressing hundreds of dollars into Cullen's hand. "Take this. Forget you were here." With his heart pounding, Cullen accepted the bribe, nodded slowly, and backed away. But the moment he vanished into the fog, he sprinted back to his station to report the encounter. While Cullen raised the alarm, Dasch and his team hurriedly buried their explosives and uniforms in the sand. Changing fully into American civilian attire, they walked to the nearest Long Island train station. By the time the sun rose, they had melted into the bustle of New York City. It was here, amidst the anonymity of the metropolis, that Dasch took the step nobody expected. Checking into a hotel in Manhattan, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the telephone, his hands trembling. He dialed the FBI office in New York. "I need to speak to J. Edgar Hoover," he stated. "I am a German spy, and I want to turn myself in." The agent on the line dismissed it as a prank and hung up. Dasch tried again, calling Washington, D.C., but was met with the same disbelief. Realizing he would not be believed over the phone, Dasch made a bold choice. He boarded a train to Washington, D.C., and walked directly into FBI headquarters. In his hand, he carried a briefcase stuffed with $84,000 in cash, undeniable proof of his mission. Once inside, he revealed everything: the submarine journey, the landing, the buried explosives, and the identities of his compatriots. Crucially, he provided the location of the second team of saboteurs heading for Florida. The FBI agents were stunned. The threat was real, and the evidence was sitting on their desk. Yet, one question lingered in the room. Why had he betrayed his country? Within 48 hours, the FBI initiated the largest manhunt in American history. To prevent panic and keep the enemy in the dark, they withheld all information from the press and public. They moved in absolute silence. One by one, the remaining spies were tracked down. Ernst Berger was arrested in New York. He, too, had allegedly planned to surrender. The second team was intercepted hiding in a hotel in Chicago. Remarkably, all 8 saboteurs were captured without a single shot being fired. The United States had successfully neutralized the largest sabotage operation ever attempted on its soil, and the Nazi command had no idea their plan had failed. Back in Berlin, Adolf Hitler waited for reports of destruction. He expected headlines of burning factories, derailed trains, and American panic. Instead, there was only silence. The FBI maintained secrecy for weeks to ensure no other sleeper agents were lying in wait. When the news was finally released, the American public was horrified. The realization that enemy spies had walked freely on their beaches, and that the nation had been saved only by one man's conscience, sent shockwaves through the country. In July 1942, 8 German agents were brought before a special confidential panel. President Franklin D. Roosevelt authorized this process to ensure that sensitive national security information remained classified. The review progressed quickly, finishing in about 3 weeks. In the end, all 8 individuals were formally held accountable for their activities. This decision also applied to George Dasch and Ernst Berger. Dasch was taken aback by the outcome. He had voluntarily approached authorities and provided information about the entire group, believing his cooperation would be acknowledged differently. Instead, his case was evaluated within the same framework as the others. Dasch sat in his cell, waiting for the end. But then, an unexpected turn of events occurred. President Roosevelt reviewed the case files personally. Recognizing the critical role Dasch's confession had played, he made a decision that would alter the spies' fates. On August 8th, 1942, 6 of the 8 saboteurs were led to the execution chamber and strapped into the electric chair. Within hours, all 6 were dead, the largest mass execution for espionage in American history. But 2 lives were spared. Roosevelt commuted the sentences of George Dasch and Ernst Berger to prison terms. Dasch received 30 years. Berger received life. The American public was furious at the news of the commutations. They demanded the death penalty for all invaders, with no exceptions. But Roosevelt understood a truth the public did not. Without Dasch's defection, the sabotage mission might have succeeded. Factories could have been leveled, bridges collapsed, and thousands of American lives lost. Roosevelt struck a quiet deal. Dasch and Berger would live, but they would never enjoy freedom in the United States. Their story would be buried, and for decades, it was largely forgotten. George Dasch served 6 years in federal prison. In 1948, President Harry Truman granted him clemency, but it came with a strict condition: immediate deportation to Germany. He was never to set foot on American soil again. Dasch spent the remainder of his life trying to clear his name. He wrote letters, granted interviews, and even published a book, insisting he was a hero who had saved American lives, not a traitor. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. In Germany, he was reviled as a traitor who sent his comrades to the electric chair. In America, he was dismissed as just another enemy spy. He died in 1992, isolated and bitter. History, however, remembers the facts. George Dasch's decision on that beach in 1942 halted one of the most dangerous Nazi operations ever launched against the United States. He prevented chaos and saved countless lives, paying for it with his own reputation and freedom. His story serves as a stark reminder that the line between hero and traitor is often thinner than we imagine. Operation Pastorius remains one of the most shocking episodes of World War II espionage, a mission where German agents landed on American shores, only to be stopped by the conscience of one of their own.